Oh my god. Marvel, call me. Cindy writes, which comic event that was actually considered a bit of a letdown on paper do you think would do better in the MCU with some minor tweaking? Operation Zero Tolerance wasn't anyone's favorite run, but it really worked well in X-Men 97. Yeah, it did. I'm thinking of things in that ballpark. All right. Well, thank you so much for that question, and thank you again for being a channel member. Really appreciate it. So when talking about comic lines that weren't received well on the page, but do have the potential to be adapted well on the big screen or the small screen, one that always comes to mind for me is, okay, well, actually, I was going to say two. No, three. There are three that come to mind. There's the Clone Saga Spider-Man story. There's the Spider-Man One More Day story that has kind of sort of already been adapted with No Way Home. And then number three is Civil War 2. Now, Civil War 2 is the one that I want to talk about to answer your question, because I'm actually surprised that they haven't already done it in the Multiverse Saga, and I'm hopeful that they may take a crack at it in like a post-Secret Wars MCU. So Civil War 2, it featured the rivalry of Tony Stark Iron Man versus Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, as opposed to Civil War 1, which was Tony versus Steve Rogers, Cap. And that was, of course, loosely adapted for the MCU's Captain America Civil War, which we'll talk about here shortly. So in the comics, for Civil War 2, there is this new Inhuman named Ulysses who has the ability to predict the future. Now, Captain Marvel wants to use this ability to prevent bad shit from happening before it happens, while Tony, on the other hand, argues that punishing people before the fact is wrong and can lead to like some serious consequences when it comes to, freedoms and liberty. Now, this is a storyline that I think would have been and could still absolutely be perfect for the MCU, with, of course, some slight modifications. We need to keep in mind that the MCU's Civil War, it is a total departure from the comic book story. Apart from like some shared characters and thematic beats, that movie is really just adaptation in name only. And I think the same would and should be true for an MCU Civil War 2. I mean, you have to, because Civil War 2 happens at a point in the comics that is so just starkly different from where we're at right now in the MCU. So you have to adapt quite a bit. You have to change quite a bit, to make it work. So I think you definitely keep Captain Marvel. They did a lot of work to set her up through Endgame, and then it kind of feels like they've kind of abandoned the character. I think you keep Captain Marvel, but you, of course, swap Tony Stark because he's dead. And I think you swap him with Sam Wilson's Captain America. And instead of Ulysses being an Inhuman, I think you have him be a mutant. The Multiverse Saga, it's already laying the groundwork for, the introduction of mutants into the MCU. We've already taken a crack at the Inhumans, didn't go so well. So yeah, I think you make him a mutant, and I think that would have been a great, first step to slowly introducing the mutants into the MCU. The next saga, in all likelihood, I think it's going to be the Mutant Saga. Therefore, it's going to be a very mutant-heavy, mutant-centric saga. So even in like non-X-Men films, the saga is still the Mutant Saga. So I think Civil War 2 and having Ulysses in it, but not as an Inhuman, but as this really powerful mutant whose powers have a significant consequence on society, on humanity, that makes it a really solid option for. I think they could have done it in the Multiverse Saga, but it could also be great for a post-Secret Wars film. Now, let's tackle had they done it in this saga first, and then we'll talk about the possibilities for a post-Secret Wars way to do it. The character of Sam and Carol, in the Multiverse Saga, I think both of those characters have really deserved better. They did a lot to set them up, and had they stuck to it, they being Marvel, and really given these characters the time and attention and treatment that they deserved and done it right, because I'm not saying they abandoned the characters. I mean, Sam got a full show and a movie. Carol got another movie. So I'm not saying that they completely abandoned the characters. They weren't laying the groundwork and building to anything really. And that's where the problem kind of lies, where they were just kind of done a bit of a disservice. And it's neither the actor's faults or the character's faults. It's just a management issue. But anyway, I think they deserve better in this post-Endgame era. We should have gotten, I think, a post-Endgame Civil War movie, like in phase 4 maybe, or phase 5 of the MCU, and then have that lead to like a proper Avengers movie in phase 4 or 5. You know, I could totally see Carol with like her cosmic macro view of the universe, not just of Earth, and her wanting to use this future telling mutant to prevent catastrophe because she is constantly crisscrossing the cosmos trying to tend to everyone in need, all of these different civilizations. Whereas Sam, following in the footsteps of Steve Rogers, he would have like an understandably like more earthbound view, and he would want to protect not only the people of Earth, but like the individual liberties and freedoms. I mean, he is Captain America. And I think he would view like preventing natural disasters, that's one thing, but he would view arresting people before they commit crimes as a step way too far. And I think he, as a black man, and everything they built up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and in Brave New World, he could speak, a lot to the profiling nature of that type of system where people are, being incarcerated or arrested or picked up or whatever and tried before they've even committed the crime. He could speak to that a lot, just like Tony did in the Civil War II comic. And it would all tie back, I think, to Steve's words to Nick Fury in Winter Soldier.
Thought the punishment usually came after the crime.
Now, I think Captain Marvel versus Captain America, that would have been dope. And it still could be. Granted, Captain Marvel, yes, could wipe the floor with Sam Wilson, of course, but that's not the point. It's a battle of ideas more than it's like a literal fistfight battle. So let's talk about what the teams could look like. So Sam's team would, of course, have Joaquin's Falcon. Captain Marvel's team, I think, would totally have her fangirl, Miss Marvel, at her side. But two characters that would be really fun to pit against each other, I think, would be Daredevil and She-Hulk, both attorneys, but one being a vigilante who works tirelessly night after night to catch bad guys and who may be swayable about the idea of stopping crime before it happens. But then we could see She-Hulk, say how that is not how the law works, and they could have like a great argument about the legal ramifications of pre-arresting people and how those cases would, how would they even be prosecuted? And I think She-Hulk would win that argument and convince Matt, Daredevil, to join her and Sam's side of this argument. And other characters, that come to mind for this would be characters like Doctor Strange, who has used future telling to save the entire universe before when he, saw how they were going to beat Thanos and how he made the decision that he's going to sacrifice Tony because he knew Tony was going to die, but it was for the greater good of beating Thanos and saving the universe and saving all the people that he dusted away. So he, Doctor Strange, would probably be in favor of the idea and be Team Captain Marvel. And God, the more I talk about it, the more I wish they had actually done this for the Multiverse Saga. It'd be cool. It's crazy, really, how much shit they put in this saga, but how little of it actually had any impact and built to anything. This would have been a great story for this saga, because this saga, I mean, it was all about timelines and variant futures and the decisions you make and free will and how the decisions you make result in completely different futures. And Loki's whole show was about, giving people free will. And you have this debate of, well, is the future truly set? That would have been perfect for this movie. A story about the dangers of messing with time and reading the future and trying to predict the future and punishing people in advance. That theme would all tie in perfectly with the theme of the Multiverse Saga without it even actually having anything to do with the multiverse. And then you could later find out that Ulysses' mutant power, his ability to see the future, is connected to the multiverse. Oh my God. Marvel, call me. I'm not good at anything but this. I'm good at this. Give me a call. Now, look, they could still do this, I think, in the next saga. Like I said, they kind of, they've already set it up, I think. This a little bit. They've set up a divide with Sam and the new Avengers. But I assume that they'll touch on all that in Doomsday. I don't know if that divide leads into anything else, like post Secret Wars. They've got a lot of stuff to juggle in these two movies, so I don't know how they're going to juggle that divide that kind of felt like they were setting up a Civil War scenario for Sam versus Bucky or Sam versus Yelena, both of which would be cool, by the way, because we'd see like the Avengers versus the Avengers, which is basically what the first Civil War movie was. But anyway, yeah, I'm kind of upset now that they didn't do Civil War 2 in the Multiverse Saga. Anyway, thank you so much for your question. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in to the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, and hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.